Hi everyone, my name is Rachel and welcome to the French Seams. Thank you very much for joining me for today's video. So this is all about Sew Phoenix September Challenge and I am delighted it's finally here. So what is Sew Phoenix September? It's basically a challenge that is being run throughout September, hosted by myself and my two wonderful friends Sam So Let's Sparkle and Catherine Soverton Makery. You basically recreate an older make. You breathe new life into it by using all the tools and techniques and skills that you now have that you mightn't have had necessarily when you first made the item, be it a garment, a bag, accessory, whatever the case may be. You could be recreating something that you made last year, or you could be recreating something you made 40 years ago when you first started sewing. So how do you enter? So it's an Instagram challenge, but if you do have a private Instagram account or you cannot post on Instagram, you can of course email in your entry and let us know your story and your location as well. I'll pop the email address along here and in the description box below. If you are posting on Instagram, you can post on any day throughout September. You don't need to wait until the last day. You be sure to tag myself, the French Seams, Sam So Let's Sparkle and Catherine Soverton Makery. You use the hashtag SewPhoenixSeptember25. You show us your remake. If you do have a photograph of your older make, then that would be great too. You share your story, you share with us how you recreated it and what you did differently, and you tell us where you are in the world, because that's important, because there are a whole host of wonderful prizes, and I'd like to say a massive thank you to all those sponsors. If you are making your make throughout September, you can of course use the hashtag SewPhoenixSeptemberWIP to show us that it's a work in progress, show us how you're getting on, and if you are running into any difficulty, be sure to use the hashtag SewPhoenixSeptemberHelp and somebody I'm sure will come to your rescue. So that's what the challenge is and also how you can enter. I really do hope you join us. I cannot wait to see all your remakes and your reimaginings of old makes, and I hope you do fall in love with those makes again. So today I thought it'd be fun because myself and Sam and Catherine, we're not showing you what we're going to be recreating until later in the month. We're keeping that top secret. But I thought today it would be interesting for me to show you some of my oldest makes, and if I was to recreate them, what I would do differently. So we'll go back into the archives, back to about 8 years ago in very early 2017 when I first started sewing after a local sewing class, and then I also went to a wonderful sewing class in Dublin that was hosted by the lovely Zaria. She is the city seamstress over on Instagram. I'll link her down below as well. And between those two classes, those wonderful teachers, Instagram, YouTube, books, my sewing journey started. And I should mention that I just fell down the Instagram and YouTube rabbit holes as well. So shall we go back to the very start, and I will show you pictures. I don't necessarily have all of those makes, but I definitely do have pictures because even back then I was photographing my makes. So one of the very first things I made was a little skirt and a shell top. So they are both in the sewing class I started in, and they are both drafted by the teacher. So I loved making them. In the skirt there was a waistband, there was a buttonhole, I think it was fully lined. In the shell top as well there was a zip, there was a facing, and I just loved making them. And I remember being so proud of those makes, and I wore that shell top into work and I was so proud of it. I never wore the skirt because it was a little bit short, so the things I would have to change on the skirt are to lengthen it for sure, and also to grade, because she just gave us a pattern, but now I know that I need to grade between sizes. Usually when I make something I have to grade between the bust, the waist and the hips, because I'm definitely a pear shape, and I also have to lengthen bodices, I have to lengthen trousers because I am 5'9" and most patterns are drafted for 5'6" or whatever. But now I know that I can read a pattern, see what is drafted for, and see the grading and what possible alterations I need to make. So I would have definitely done those to the skirt. With the shell top, knowing what I know now, I don't particularly like facing, so I'll pop in a picture of the facing here, a little close-up. You can see at that time I was even putting labels on my makes. I bought that little ribbon in Tiger, I think, and I cut it up and I used to put it into all my makes. I was so proud. But now I would use binding on those necklines. I don't particularly like a facing. I love Specky Seamstress binding and I use it in all my makes, and that's probably what I would replace the facing with. I did also make another version of that shell top later on, and I did actually fully line it, which is a lovely technique to use as well. So they were my earliest things. Shortly after that, I moved on to bag making, which is, if you watch my channel, you know that I love making bags, and I started those in my journey quite early. The first one I made was this. It's called the Ava bag, and it's a fully reversible little carry bag, and it was adorable. I don't still have it, unfortunately. I do have a picture, but I remember loving making this. And then I also found a wonderful zipper pouch pattern. So this is one of my earliest zipper pouches. You can see the flamingo love even back then, flamingos on the outside, and there was also flamingos on the inside as well. So you can see the love goes way back. I love this zipper pattern. I still use it today. The things I would change now are interfacing, for sure. So I didn't know much about interfacing back in the day. I now know that you can use lovely woven interfacing, you can use non-woven interfacing, there's stretch interfacing, there's stabilizers. It's a whole big industry in itself. But looking back, I would have used very, very good interfacing for this for sure, to give it a bit of a structure, a bit of stability, and also for this as well. The inside, I think, is kind of a kind of cotton canvas, which is okay, but the outside is just cotton, and I think a bit of interfacing would have given it a little bit more structure. Another thing I would change is how I use zips. So I used dressmaking zips all the time on all my crafty makes, on all my bags back in the day, and now I use primarily continuous zips that come in a big huge roll, and you can cut them down to size, and then of course you get the opportunity to use very pretty zip pulls. So here you can just say it's a little dressmaking zip, but I think a continuous zip gives much more flexibility, and I think they just look a bit prettier as well. So they would be my changes if I was going to recreate my bags. So moving on to a dress that I made in the early days, and I remember just loving this dress. And this is actually going to be a little shout out to my wonderful friend Carol. She is So Carol here on YouTube, because it is a Burda pattern. And I don't think Carol thinks that I make any big four patterns, and I don't, but I have made one. So Carol, this one is for you. This is Burda 6721, and it's a lovely, lovely shift dress. And again, I wore this all the time. Not sure does it still fit me, but I wore this all the time back when I first made it, and I remember being so proud. So it's a lovely shift dress. It has beautiful bust darts, it has lovely fisheye darts in the back, it's got a lapped zip, and it's fully lined. So I remember bagging this out and being really disappointed that the neckline just went completely awry, but then of course I read the instructions, which always we should do, and of course they mentioned about snipping into the neckline, which of course now makes it sit nice and flat. So I think another thing I would do differently as well is to actually read the instructions properly. I loved making this, I really did, and I was so proud of it. You can see my little label here. The thing I would recreate about this dress, and I probably would make this dress again, it's really pretty, is my hemming. So this is lovely kind of cotton, it's almost cotton canvas, lightweight cotton canvas fabric I got locally back then. But my hemming, I didn't have an overlocker. I think I pinking sheared the edge, which just made it fray even more. And then I just turned it under, but I just hemmed it about an inch away from the edge of the fabric. I'm not quite sure why I did that. So now, knowing what I know now, I would use maybe a hot hemmer. So that's a little tool I now have. This is a Generates one, and you can iron over this, and you can push it under your hem and measure wherever you want and iron over it, and it gives a beautiful hem finish. I would definitely have turned it under or done something to make a little nicer hem, because as you can see, this probably isn't going to last the test of time, but I think finishing techniques is a massive thing that I would do now on any future make, but still very proud of this dress. The next garment I moved on to was a blouse, and I made the Pussy Bow blouse by Sew Over It, and this is it here. I think I actually got this fabric from Sew Over It at the time as well. It's a very lightweight but beautiful georgette. I was quite ambitious making a blouse with a georgette a few months after I started sewing, but you don't know what you don't know, so I just went ahead and did it, and I remember loving it. It is still okay. There's a bit of fraying going on here, and I think on one of the cuffs it's slightly fraying, just because these are just so small. There's beautiful rouleau loops at the cuffs, and there's these beautiful pearl buttons. I did definitely wear this. I wore it to work. I think it's really pretty. It's a beautiful pattern, and I would actually like to revisit this again. But for this, definitely looking at finishing techniques. I can see that it's even fraying at the back here. Finishing techniques for sure. I didn't again have an overlocker. I just zigzagged the seams, which isn't great in this fabric. I probably would have done something like French seams to make it a little bit more stable in this lightweight fabric. Again, the hemming isn't wonderful. I'll show you the inside of the hem. It's not that great. I think I pinking sheared it, and then I zigzagged it, and then I hemmed it, which isn't great. I definitely would have used a Microtex needle, which of course I didn't know about. I probably just had a universal needle or something like that, on very fine fabric so it doesn't snag. There are a couple of puckers in it and little runs. So a better needle, better finishing techniques, but I think yeah, as a first attempt is pretty good, but I would definitely like to remake this, and I think it's such a pretty blouse. They have updated this, I think, and they now have gathers at the bust line, which is very, very pretty, but I think looking back, I think there are a few things that I could definitely improve on this. So then after I started with my wovens, I then went and started sewing with knits. And I still have a few of those here. My very, very first knit top was the Tilly and the Buttons Cocoa. And it is in this fabulous fabric. I remember just falling in love with this because it looked like Ted Baker. It is Scuba, which was tricky, I suppose, to start with. But this is a wonderful beginner pattern. So you just turn over the neckline and stitch it down. It's just seams and long sleeves. I remember just loving this. The difference here, obviously now I would use my overlocker, which I'm very, very lucky to have. If you are a very lucky person that you have a cover stitch, of course you could use that for knits, which is marvellous. I've yet to get a cover stitch machine. I'll settle with my overlocker. I would have overlocked all the seams, and then of course with the hemming it would have looked nicer as well. The thing I remember with this was that my thread did not like this fabric. I think I just had crafting thread, and I was doing a zigzag stitch on the hem. I remember actually going out and buying Gutermann thread, which gave a much, much nicer finish. So I think if I was to recreate this, I would definitely get proper Gutermann thread. I think it makes a world of difference. It then didn't skip any stitches, and it gave a much nicer finish, because on the inside, if I do show you, there's an awful lot of skip stitches where my machine just did not like this fabric. So lesson learned, proper thread, again a proper ballpoint needle, which I probably didn't use back in the day either, and I think this will be far more successful. In saying that, this was made in 2017 and it's still going strong, so it's not too bad, is it? After that, I decided it was time to make Mr. French Seam something, so I made him a t-shirt, and I'm very, very happy to say he still wears it, and this was made in about March of 2017. It is the men's Metro tee by Oliver Ness, Liesl & Co, and it's a lovely t-shirt pattern. I still use it for him. It was pre-overlocker, so I just zigzagged the neckband. Of course, now I would have put a lovely neck binding on the inside. I have a video on how to do that. I would have used my overlocker, all that good stuff, but it's pretty good. The one thing they do ask you to do on this pattern is to stabilize the shoulder seams, and I put in a little bit of ribbon. You can still see a little bit of it here. I had to cut it out because the entire thing frayed. I didn't know how to stabilize neck seam or shoulder seams. I would of course now use first an overlocker and then some stabilizing tape, which works very, very well so the shoulder seams don't stretch out. Again, in saying that, this is now 8 years old and it's still going strong again. So yes, I definitely would have updated this as well. With all my makes, of course, I now would have given them a little glow up by putting on some lovely labels as well. So after that, and the final make that I'm going to show you is my Linden sweatshirt, and I made so many of these back in the day. By this time I had an overlocker. Delight with myself. What I learned in this was grading. So I think I did need to grade on this pattern between the bust and the waist and the hips, and I also learned about lengthening patterns. So I made it a little bit longer because I'm quite tall. It's in this beautiful sparkle knit that my little sister gave me at the time. For this I tried to start hacking a pattern, and I tried to alter the neckline because the neckline on the Linden sweatshirt is quite low. So I decided to raise up the neckline. But then I managed to miss out the seam allowance, all that good stuff in the neckband. So the neckband is really, really narrow, but I still love this. I still wear it, but lessons learned. And again, if I was to recreate, I would now know how to alter the neckline properly, maybe do a measurement of the neckband, 80 or 90% of the neck, and then do your neckband. And I think I'd have far more success. Also, looking back, I didn't quite know about the stretch of fabric. So this has no stretch at all, or barely any. So I would of course use ribbing on the neckband and the cuffs and the hem, because these are quite tricky, they're quite static. But again, knowing what I know now, that is how I would update these kind of sweatshirts, and I have since then. So I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of the kind of the tools and techniques and the skills that maybe you might have now that you didn't necessarily have when you made your original garment or garments. Of course, you can enter multiple times. I haven't shown you what garment I'm going to recreate. You'll have to wait until the middle of the month to do that. I really do hope you join us. There is a vlogger tour, of course, ongoing. Tomorrow is going to be my lovely friend Mandy, Make It So. So I'll link her channel down below. Be sure to give her a watch. I'm sure she's going to come up with something wonderful. So all the vloggers are going to give you some inspiration and hopefully the backstories of why they're going to recreate their makes as well, which is going to be very, very interesting. So thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found this interesting. I do hope you join in. I do hope you have a make or several makes in the back of your mind that you would like to give another go to, that you would like to breathe a bit of life in. And I am very, very keen to see what you all come up with. So So thank you very, very much for watching. As always, if you like this video, I would dearly love it if you give me a thumbs up, and also please consider subscribing. And I cannot wait to see you later in the month with my plans. But in the meantime, I wish you a very, very happy So Phoenix September. Talk to you all again very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye.